time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
No doubt this will be a heck of a matchup. Obviously played each other the last 2 years and come down to plays, and I don't doubt this one will be the same. But it's exciting to be a part of it.
We feel like the committee did a great job of, selecting the 4 best teams, and we certainly feel like we're one of those teams.
What is Kurt Roper's status with the team?
He's our offensive coordinator.
Do you think that might change? Do you? His name has been out there with Rice. There have been
I'm not going to get into speculation and sources said and business like that. Right now, he's our offensive coordinator. That's all I know.
Do you expect him to be for the bowl game?
Sure.
How would you evaluate Kurt's performance as your offensive coordinator and play caller this season?
Well, we need to be more productive offensively, and there's no doubt about that. And I think that's the first thing he'd tell you as well.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Hope you had a great weekend. Man, what a weekend it was. We have got so much to cover for you tonight. Phil Kornblut with you from down in the Grand Strand here for the North-South game, the Touchstone Energy Bowl coming up on Saturday. We begin our coverage tonight. Was over at practice late this afternoon. By the time I got down here, got a chance to watch the South team work out a little bit. We'll hear from South head coach Nate Thompson later in the program. Also fill a couple of roster changes on the South side because of injuries to players who were hurt. 2 players from Dillon, both were injured in the state championship game on Saturday, so they will not be able to play in the North-South game. We'll give you details on that coming up. Plus, of course, Clemson in Charlotte. Willie P. was there for that. USC and Clemson basketball, both winners. Frank Martin blew his top after the Gamecocks win on Saturday. We'll let you hear from him. The USC football team headed back to Tampa for a rematch with Michigan. They won't have Jadeveon Clowney with them, but they'll have the memory of the hits with them. I'm not so sure the Michigan people really think too much about it, but the Gamecocks certainly do. They've already started replaying that thing on social media ever since the matchup was announced. So we have got just so much ground to cover. Phone number 800-956-7266, 800-956-7266. Guys, I don't want to talk ad nauseum here about the 4. In my opinion, the committee got it right. 4 best teams are in the playoffs. I think it's been analyzed, dissected from every which angle it can be, unless you have a differing opinion. I will say this, and Will, you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson looked like a machine against Miami, and Kelly Bryant was as good as any quarterback in the country for about 30 minutes the other night.
I'm going to say this, and I'll put the qualifier out there to say if they play the way they did on Saturday, Clemson's going to win another national championship. That's simple to me. They looked about as good as they had at any point in the year. They saved their best 4 quarters of football for their most important game. 15 completions to start the game, and I know that some of them were just, screen passes and little jump passes, but they had Miami on their heels from the word go. Even when they got the muff punt, Miami couldn't do anything with it. And it also exposed to you a little bit about how Miami had their success. Not only did they get all those turnovers, but they were able to capitalize off those turnovers. The fact that they were not able to get any points off of the Ray McLeod muff punt, from that moment happened, and they missed that field goal, I turned to the person next to me and I said, this ball game is over because Clemson will score at an efficient enough rate to make things happen going forward, and they didn't make it close, and I knew they weren't going to make it close. I said 38-10 on Friday, and it was 38-3.
And I think probably my feeling was just from the eye test, Alabama was number 4. And Corn, you and I talked about it in the office this afternoon. Well, stick Alabama at number 4 the week before. Why did you stick Wisconsin in at number 4?
Give them hope.
Knowing good and well that you saw 2 teams knocking heads in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title. For what? They weren't going to get in. So put Alabama at number 4 at the beginning. Plus, everybody talks about Iowa's loss. Ohio State's loss to Iowa. I don't think that's what got Alabama in. I think that frightening sight of what Clemson did to Ohio State last year
I said that yesterday.
is what got Alabama.
Yeah, don't underrate that.
4.
Don't underrate the 31-0 loss last year to Clemson at all.
The memory burns on, I guess, inside that committee room. Everything you're saying is pretty much spot on. I mean, I don't know where you could make any successful argument for Ohio State or Wisconsin to get them into the 4th, saying that either one of those would beat Alabama on a given day on a neutral field. The Iowa loss does weigh heavily with me when I think about Ohio State. You lost 31 points on the road to a pretty average team. Now, people would say, well, Clemson lost to Syracuse on the road as well, and Syracuse was an average team. Granted, that is true. And I can't defend that for Clemson. To working to their benefit was that they did not fall too far down the line, and they were able to recover by having some solid wins the rest of the way and not stubbing their toe again. Ohio State had 2 losses. The committee obviously was not ready to go with a team that had 2 losses. And also the argument, I mean, the Big Ten has to do some real self-reflection here, because this is 2 years in a row where the team that won the Big Ten championship game did not get into the playoffs.
Well, here's the real weird part about this entire thing when it comes to Ohio State versus Alabama. They went with the more defensible argument when it comes to Alabama. And not only did they do that, but I think they also, and Pro alluded to this a little bit, they went with the group that would probably provide more of a tepid fight back, if you will. Could you imagine if Alabama was left out of the playoff, what the response would be on, the SEC network and ESPN, who is basically in bed with the SEC? I mean, it would be effusively bad.
I would hope that that's not part of their discussion. I would be worried about the blowback.
Again, number one, the blowback, but number two, I've said this the entire year. It's a TV show, and I'm all about TV ratings. Clemson and Alabama in a semifinal, I'm sorry. They saw what happened last year, like you said, to Ohio State. Clemson, Alabama is going to get a lot more eyeballs than Clemson, Ohio State.
I think probably the key point that the committee has not discussed enough, Corn, which I think probably enamored them to Clemson last year, is does this team have the ability to take control of a game early and keep control throughout? I think Clemson has done that, and Alabama, the 2 best teams of doing that the last 2 years than any other team. Ohio State has dominated some teams, but you can see there's been ebb and flow through some of their victories. And I think the committee also looks at that when a team just grabs control and just pound their opposition into submission.
One thing you mentioned, Will, too, talking about Kelly Bryant and hitting his first 15 passes. Now, not only did he complete his first 15 passes, but, I mean,
darts.
He was the precision. He put the ball, I think, on every one of those passes right where the receiver would want it to be. I don't know that he made his guys reach or stretch for a pass during that stretch at all. I mean, he just came out focused and on fire, and Clemson just took off. And, of course, the defense was excellent all night long.
Not only that, but when you think about the way that he was able to not only complete those passes, but these are routes we've seen him complete all year, but a lot of times they weren't necessarily done with the kind of stride or with the kind of, like you use the word precision, like we saw on Saturday night. I think about the touchdown pass he threw to Deion Kane. How many times have we seen him throw that fade route to Deion Kane and either underthrow it and Deion have to come back and kind of make a play like a punt returner, or have to go out and maybe catch it on the run? That one throw for the touchdown pass with Deion Kane was thrown with such precision and stride that Deion Kane didn't even have to break off his route to do anything. It was right there in the breadbasket, dropped in the bucket. It was amazing.
And, of course, Alabama and Clemson, they come into these football games and they look like they're playing on a business trip.
It was a walk in the park.
While the other opponents are really working on feelings of emotion, which runs out very quickly.
You used the word metronome a couple weeks ago to talk about South Carolina Clemson. Clemson looked like they were working on a metronome with their mood on Saturday night.
Okay, we got all that. Will Muschamp coming your way? The Gamecocks established early as favorites over Michigan. Your thoughts about that when we come back?
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We are back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Phil Kornblut from the Grand Strand all week long, heading into the North-South game, which comes up on Saturday, noontime on South Carolina Radio Network, the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. And remember, you can still get tickets in advance of the game to see some of the best high school players in South Carolina. Just go online to TouchstoneEnergyBowl.com and purchase your tickets there. Tickets are at $20. You can also buy your tickets, of course, at the gates. And we look forward to having you down here at the beach. Weather's going to be okay tomorrow. Then some rain is moving in. Game day Saturday, chillier in the 50s, but I think we're going to be okay as far as the weather is concerned regarding rain and things like that. All right, so let me backtrack. Michigan is the favorite. Where did I see South Carolina listed as a favorite?
It was put up, I believe, by somebody. It said that it was South Carolina minus 8.5, but they actually had it reversed. It was Michigan 8.5. So
my bad. So
no big
Michigan,
deal.
I thought that was kind of weird when I saw that. Michigan's 8.5-point favorite, and Alabama is a 2-point favorite over Clemson.
Opened at one, and then turned.
Before we get to phone calls, 800-956-7266. I want to go back and play something from Will Muschamp's press conference from yesterday. You heard it in the opening of the broadcast tonight, but here is what the exchange was between Josh Kendall of the State and Will Muschamp regarding USC's offensive coordinator, Kurt Roper.
What is Kurt Roper's status with the team?
He's our offensive coordinator.
Do you think that might change? Do you? His name has been out there with Rice. There have been
I'm not going to get into speculation and sources said in business like that. Right now he's our offensive coordinator. That's all I know.
Do you expect him to be for the bowl game?
Sure.
How would you evaluate Kurt's performance as your offensive coordinator and play caller this season?
Well, we need to be more productive offensively, and there's no doubt about that. And I think that's the first thing he'd tell you as well.
Okay, that's Will Muschamp. I bring this up because either Muschamp is misleading us or one of the renowned Gamecock insiders, Tony Morrell of the Big Spur, has information that Muschamp doesn't know about. I don't know which one to believe here. I prefer to believe the head coach when he says, and I don't like it when coaches play games with you, and I understand you try to protect people when job situations are being talked about, but it's always been my opinion the best thing to do is to be straightforward and honest, or just say I can't answer the question. Don't give an answer and it turn out to be totally bogus. Tony Morrell, the Big Spur, he wrote that despite what Muschamp said, it will be co-offensive coordinator Brian McClendon handling the game planning and play calling for the Outback Bowl. And he also writes that he expects the new offensive coordinator to come from outside the staff. So Tony Morrell believes that Roper is gone, and he also believes that McClendon will be the play caller. Not believes it. He's reporting that McClendon will be the play caller, which is fine. I mean, I don't really care. What I don't like is when a coach looks into a crowd of reporters and has an honest, direct question asked and is not truthful. I'm not saying he isn't being truthful. I'm hoping he is being truthful, and I'm hoping this information is wrong, just from the standpoint of, how a coach should deal with these kind of situations.
Well, I think in this case, he's not lying. I would say he's more withholding the truth than he is lying.
Plausible deniability.
Because as far as he knows right now, member in good standing of the South Carolina coaching staff, nothing would lead you to believe that he's not. He's going out on recruiting trips. He's visiting players who South Carolina either has committed or is prospectively targeting.
Time out. Thousands of Gamecock fans read this website.
Yeah.
And based on this story, I would not suggest that Roper is an assistant coach in good standing. Let me repeat what he writes here. Despite Muschamp's comments on the subject last night, I anticipate co-offensive coordinator Brian McClendon handling the game planning and play calling. While this will give him a chance to prove himself to Muschamp, I currently expect the new offensive coordinator to come from outside the staff. That does not sound like Roper is in good standing.
I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying that Will Muschamp is only giving you what he can give you as far as what for appearances. You want to at least promote some sort of level of stability. I think that's you're promoting a level of stability from your program's perspective. That's all I think he's doing. And I think that's, again, whether it's misleading, whether it's misdirection, whether he's lying or just withholding the truth, I think you have to do what's best for your program, and that is promote some sort of vision of stability. I'm not saying Tony Morrell's information is bad. I'm just saying that, from the standpoint of what Will Muschamp needs to promote in order to make his program still look attractive, he needs to make it look like there's no infighting and that there's no indiscretion going on.
All right. 800-956-7266. I just wanted to point that out because this is what is being reported.
Do you not agree with what I'm saying, though?
No, I believe – I really believe you
What do you expect him to say? What do you expect him to say?
I expect him to say, if a guy asks a question, hey, is Kurt Roper your offensive coordinator?
He still is as of right now, is he not?
Will he be calling the plays? Will he be calling the plays in the game? Okay. He was asked that question, and he said yes. That's in direct conflict with this information. You can't look at it any other way. Either one is right and one is wrong. There's no other way to slice it up.
As far as he knows, Kurt Roper is calling the plays. Now, Kurt Roper could go to him tomorrow and say, I've been offered the job at Rice, and I'm going to take it. So then that information would change.
Tony Morrell knows more than Will Muschamp?
I think Will Muschamp is focused on trying to win a game against Michigan. That's what I think.
You're dodging the story here.
I'm not dodging
that. Yeah.
I'm not dodging the story. I'm telling you, Will Muschamp's only obligation is to the program and to getting ready to play Michigan.
I also think with his position, and he's been in the coaching profession for a long time.
He knows how this works.
There's certain things, because he holds that position, he cannot. It's more prudent not to say than to say it. Tony Morrell is free to do whatever he wants because he's writing for the website. Yeah. He can be willy-nilly with the information.
Sure,
but
he could be throwing up some information just to see if it sticks.
Mm-hmm. Well, this doesn't sound like information you're throwing out to see if it sticks. This sounds like definitive. When you say that I expect the new offensive coordinator to come from outside the staff, when you say I anticipate Brian McClendon handling the planning and the play calling, that's in direct direct conflict with what the head coach said.
Well, this is why I don't like writing someone's obituary before their body's cold. That's just my own opinion.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm hoping Muschamp is right. Is right on with what he's saying to us. I prefer a coach to be straightforward and honest to an honest question. I think it's a bad precedent, and I hear what you're saying.
I think he's being as honest as he can be. He's being as honest as he can be.
What would be wrong with just saying I'm not answering any questions about my coaching staff?
Because then it gives the air of instability. He does not want to promote any level of instability from a recruit standpoint or from a prestige of the program standpoint. He wants to promote stability.
So it's better to say today that he's going to be my guy.
Sure.
And then 10 days from now, when practice starts, we see somebody else running the offense.
If he takes a new job, absolutely.
What if he doesn't?
So he's the offensive coordinator then.
So this is wrong.
What do you mean this is wrong?
Tony Morrell is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all I'm saying. Somebody's right here and somebody's wrong. I'm hoping that it is Muschamp that is right. From my perspective, I'm hoping the head coach is being straightforward and honest with us.
I'm not saying Tony Morrell's information is bad or that he's more or less connected than anybody else, but I'm saying that when you come down to it, Will Muschamp has to do what's best for his program, and what's best for his program is to say Kurt Roper is still the offensive coordinator, and as of right now, he's calling plays in the Outback Bowl.
And also, if he says, I don't have any answer to that, that's being evasive, and you'll dig even more.
Exactly. That's fine for him to say that, and I hope he's telling the truth, but if it turns out that Roper does not get a job, and he's not calling the plays in the Outback Bowl, and he's not the offensive coordinator in the Outback Bowl, then you lose credibility with the people that cover you.
It's all plausive deniability. That's what Pro said earlier. That's what it is.
Yeah. Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number here on Sports Talk, and we are presented by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. Let's jump out to your phone calls. Got a lot to talk about. We go to Billy in Somerville. First up tonight, welcome, Billy. How are you?
Hey, Phil. How y'all doing?
Great.
Good. First of all, as far as the playoff committee thing is concerned, I feel like they did get it right. If they had somehow put Ohio State in the Final Four, I think I would have had to jump the bridge and go get me an orange jersey shirt because I've been a Carolina fan since I was a little kid, and I just couldn't see that happening. I mean, it's just I don't understand why the media is so on Ohio State year in and year out. I mean, last year, Penn State got hosed, and everybody was like, well, it doesn't matter, but Ohio State got what they deserved this year, and it's like they're the Cinderella of college football, and I just still don't get and understand it, and I'm just glad they got it right this time.
The media is littered with a bunch of Ohio State players and people who love themselves from Urban Meyer. That's why people love Ohio State. I think it's wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong, because, I mean, how do you think Penn State fans felt last year? You know, I mean,
same exact scenario.
Yeah, the same scenario. So, I mean, what goes around comes around. They got what they deserved, and it's laughable. And I'm like, well, thank God there is a football god after all. I want to know, Phil, I'm on your show, and I've listened to Bobby's show. I know Bobby personally, and I've been there listened to him for over 20 years, just like I've had you, and I've been a Carolina fan for a long time. I want to know if I can serve somebody on your station. Somebody came back on me on his show locally today, and it had nothing to do with him. I guess he's supposedly a Ohio State fan, the bandwagon jumper, and he didn't like the comment that I made as far as Ohio State and as far as the playoffs and as far as NCAA as a whole, as far as who they pick year in, year out. So I want to know if I can just serve him on your show on your national radio instead of a local radio station.
Well, we're not national. We're statewide, but that's good enough. Make it quick.
Okay. This goes out to one Jim Downer. First of all, I do got a life. Second of all, I don't work for pennies. Third of all, I got a girlfriend. And fourth of all, as far as Ohio State and the state is concerned, as far as South Carolina and Clemson, as much as I am not a Clemson fan, the state owns Ohio State. Overall, I believe they're 5 or 6-0. So don't be calling Bobby's show saying that I need a life and not worry about Ohio State. And if you want me to come on a radio show with Bobby and talk to you personally, just give me a call. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Wow. Hey, you weren't up in the stands with this guy up in Charlotte the other night, were you? Y'all see the video of the?
Yeah.
I guess they were two Clemson fans going at it up in the upper deck.
I don't know if it was Clemson or Clemson in Miami, but there was some there was some high quality or high level beatdowning going on up in the upper deck there, man. I tell you what, man. Every time I think that we're okay allowing beer in college football games, people go ahead and prove me wrong. That's why NFL games are so barbaric these days. That's why I would never take a kid to an NFL game, because they're so barbaric because of all the beer people drink.
Blowout game. What is the deal, people?
There's nothing else better to do. Nothing else better to do.
All right, Stan, the Tiger Man. You're up next here on Sports Talk. Welcome in.
Corn, how are you doing, man? And the rest of everybody, the professor and Will Peel.
What's up, sir?
Great.
We doing fine. I just had to call Pete, but I missed you the other night. You left the show, and I never dreamed you'd bet against them Tigers and had to wear that attire up there, but I'm proud of you, boy. And I told Will the other night, y'all ought to come up with something on like the closest predictions to the points of the game. I had 38-17 and was within 4, and I called the other night, wasn't able to get on. Y'all give y'all prediction, but I was too late on the Miami Clemson game. I had it 42-17, and I was within 4 again. But proud of the team and what they're doing, and they're just working together good. Dabo and old Venables always gets them ready regardless of who they play defensively. And I've been looking forward to playing old Papa Bowden again. But I appreciate what y'all do, and thank you for taking my call, and I thoroughly enjoy your show.
Stan,
Thank you.
Stan,
Thank you very much.
Stan wouldn't have gotten the prize though, because I think one of us hit 38 right on the nose. So
yeah, I think you've mentioned that already. That you what was the score you predicted?
38-10 is what I said.
Yeah.
Like you never spike the football when you get something right once every eon. Whenever that happens,
I'm tipping my hat to you. Nicely done. Nicely done. 800-956-7266. Brady in Columbia. Welcome next into Sports Talk. How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Phil, you know I love you, Phil, but I gotta on the Coach Roper situation and Coach Muschamp in the press conference, I gotta side with Will on this one. I think there's two things going on. I think first of all it's a bold press conference, and he's just not going to answer that question right now, Phil. I mean, there's obviously something going on. I think everybody knows that, and I just think he's just not. But I think Will said it best. I mean, yesterday on December 3rd, Coach Roper is the offensive coordinator. He was with the Carolina Journal a couple of days ago, and he's probably recruiting today, working on the game plan. And you don't know what might happen, whatever situation with Rice or whatever he might have in the works, Phil. If it falls through, he might end up calling the plays again in the bowl game, but he might not be back next season. So I mean, I think there's just so many things in play. I think that was the answer he had to give yesterday, Phil, because there's just nothing announced yet. I think he had to. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about that off air, and to some degree, yes. Again, you know me, I'm a straightforward guy. I don't like when you get a direct question. I'd rather you just say no comment about it, and then you just leave it to speculation versus going on the record and saying he was asked a question by Josh, will he be calling plays in the bowl game? And he said, sure. Now, that tells me, and I hear you cackling back there, Willie P.
I believe
that I understand the front that you have to put up, but I think you do yourself more harm than good. Obviously, if this report by Tony Morrell, if this information is accurate, he's getting it from somebody who's getting it from somebody. It has to start with Muschamp through the coaching staff and on out. And obviously, if that information is correct, then something is in the works for Brian McClendon to be the offensive coordinator for the bowl game. And this sounds like that's going to be the case whether or not Roper is in Columbia or somewhere else. And so if that happens to be the case, then, you're going to go back. People are going to go, look, I don't care. And I know you're a Gamecock and Gamecock fans don't care. But to the outside world, when people look at this and read that or hear that and then see what happens, they're going to say, well, didn't Muschamp say that Roper was the guy and Roper was going to be calling plays?
Here's the question, though. If I harm you and I'm the football coach, I don't care. But if I'm going to hire the next guy and he looks at me and says, you threw your offensive coordinator under the bus during a press conference, I don't want to work for you.
Right. This is all about Will Muschamp being loyal to his guys and trying to provide what would be a, quote, safe landing spot or a soft landing spot, I guess, for Kurt Roper, wherever he takes his next gig, if he is going to take another gig away from here, whether it's at Rice, whether it's an offensive coordinator somewhere else. He is literally doing this, I don't want to say to save face, but just to provide, again, like I said before, enough plausible deniability in those answers. There's enough plausible deniability in those answers to where what is true today or what is true yesterday when he said it could also not be true the time that they line up on January 1st in the Outback Bowl.
You use that phrase, plausible deniability. I don't hear any plausible deniability in his words. Go back and
I heard it. I've heard the whole thing multiple times today.
I was the one that pieced it together.
I watched it. I heard it.
To it. He said there is no deny. There's no Brian.
As far as he knows.
Oh, we can't. We got to go to break.
As far as he knows, he's coaching in the bowl game. But guess what? That can change. That always could change. He can get hit by a beer trailer tomorrow, and they have a contingency plan for calling the plays.
But then, if you're correct, if as far as he knows he's coaching in the bowl game, then how does an insider know that Brian McClendon is calling the plays in the bowl game?
Then the insider got a scoop. Who cares? What is your? I don't understand why you're mad.
I'm not mad, but I don't like being lied to. That's all. For whether you're covering up or what, just be straightforward. That's all I'm asking.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. New odds out for the national championship. Alabama's 9-5, Clemson's 5-2, Oklahoma's 11-4, and Georgia 10-3. This is from Bova. Also, sent in my vote for the Heisman late last night. Cannot disclose my vote because the committee does not like
Come on
it to
now,
do
be
that.
straightforward, baby.
Don't lie to me, Corn. I don't like being lied to.
The committee.
I get offended when people lie to me.
To release your vote, so I'm honoring the request of the committee. Simple as that.
It's not going to Jalen Hurts like you told me it was a couple of weeks ago. So I bet you.
Well, I didn't vote for Jalen Hurts.
No, I didn't
change.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you saw the light.
Well, I mean, back then he was pretty hot, but he has cooled off a little bit. There's been others who've had some great years.
Don't lie to me. Whatever you do, just don't lie to me.
I'd like to disclose that to you, but I'm not allowed to because, I mean, I have to protect and defend the innocent here.
And that's what Will Muschamp is doing. He is protecting and defending the innocent. He is protecting his program. It is not his job, to be honest with you. It is his job to uphold and protect the South Carolina Gamecock football program.
Well, I understand that, and I appreciate that. You know, I was thinking during the break. So let's just say if Josh Kendall asked the questions, Coach, is Roper still your offensive coordinator? Yes, he is. Sure. As of right now, he is. I think that's what he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he said, will he be calling the plays in the bowl game?
Sure.
And he said, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he could have said at the very beginning, he could have said, listen, as you know, Coach Roper is being interviewed or talking with Rice about the job there. I mean, that's public knowledge. Ooh. Nobody has disputed that. And he could have said, we'll have more on him later. But you got somebody behind the scenes.
That's not the way this is. That's not the way this works. You know that's not the way this works. It's the way it's worked all the time.
And you're supposed to just like it? You don't have to like it.
I'm not
I've
saying
never liked being lied to.
I'm not saying I like it or dislike it. I'm saying I accepted that this is the way this works and that these guys literally put out only the information.
I don't accept being I don't accept being told something that's not true to my face.
Except I also know that it's not going to change. I take into account the things I cannot change and I accept them.
Yeah.
And then I use the wisdom. And then I use the wisdom I have to change the things I can.
That's you, and there's me, and there's Pro. We all have our ways of digesting.
Like I've accepted the fact.
And speaking of digestion, if you learn to accept it, you won't have to go for the Maalox every time.
Like I've accepted the fact that I probably could have dated Tony Romo's wife when I was in college if she ever picked up the phone and gave me a call back after I tried calling her. But you know what? I know I can't change that now. Same thing.
And who cares? Who cares about that? Let's stay on the subject.
I'm just saying, I've accepted the things I cannot change, which is coaches lie. It happens.
When Dabo Swinney and Will Muschamp and any other coaches in our state are asked a direct question, in my opinion, it's best not to answer the question rather than mislead or tell a direct lie when you know otherwise. And if you ask me, the person who wrote this insider story, Tony Morrell, wherever he gets his information, he just didn't make it up overnight and say, gee, I'm going to write this morning that Brian McClendon is going to be calling plays in the bowl game. The morning after the head coach said otherwise.
Contrary.
So it's the contradiction there to me that shouts loudly. And like I said at the very beginning, I want to believe, and I believe Muschamp when he says that Roper is the offensive coordinator and will be calling plays in the bowl game. I want to believe what the head coach says over what some insider says.
You cannot believe it all you want.
Can you not understand that position?
Can you not understand that Will Muschamp is not?
Question.
No,
don't answer my question with a question. Answer my question.
Your question is what again?
Oh, let's go back to the calls.
I'm just saying.
800-956-7266.
You can't get into your head. He is not obliged to tell the truth, even though as much as you want to believe that.
Greenwood, I believe, is next. Clark, welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey guys, I
Hey.
got a couple things. I've been kind of sneaky lately. I'm a big Clemson fan, and I'm proud of my Tigers, and they got swag going on. And I've been sneaking around on a couple of Alabama sites, and believe it or not, there's a lot of Alabama fans that they're sweating bumblebees right now.
They should.
Going in,
Clemson's a better team now. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. But another thing I got a question. It's about Clemson. With all the success they've had on offense and everything, is it more to do with the talent they get that makes it easier for the offensive coordinators? That's one of my questions. And do you see Tony Elliott or Jeff Scott leaving to go to a bigger job? Because through the grapevine, I've heard that Jeff Scott will not be there next year. That's just friend from a friend that, kind of goes. I had heard that, and I was just wondering what you guys think about that.
The only thing I've read is Tony Elliott.
UCF, yeah.
At UCF is what we've seen. But,
well, the talent certainly helps you become an excellent coach. I mean, you can't win the Kentucky Derby on a donkey. You got to have the great horses. And if you got great players to work with, what is your problem tonight?
That's funny. I've never heard somebody say that. That's a funny line.
That's
I'm giving you credit.
That's old as your grandmother's toes. I mean, come on, that thing's been around a long time.
I'm not as old as my grandmother's toes.
Anyway, the great players make for great coaches. I'm sorry, there's some coaches. Danny Ford, I think, used to say, I can take mine and beat yours, and I can take yours and beat yours, or something like that. In other words, he was.
Yours.
Yeah, something like that. So, in other words, coaching does make a difference in a lot of ways. We've seen bad coaches mess up decent teams, and then good coaches come in and win with them. But it does help to have the talent. And obviously, Clemson, during this run of success that they've had the talent on both sides of the ball, offense, defense. They've had speed. They've had tremendous speed on offense. They run well on defense. They're very athletic up front and strong up front. The one they did was go into Florida and recruit a few years ago some tremendous speed, and that really kind of helped turn their program around.
And getting good talent up front. Brent Venables would have loved this talent before he was let go at Oklahoma as defensive coordinator.
Please.
And they've had a run of excellent quarterbacks. I mean, Taj Boyd was an outstanding quarterback. Cole Stout kind of fit in the middle there for a short while before Deshaun Watson took over. And now, Kelly Bryant is playing as well as anybody in the country based on what I saw the other night. Okay, to James and Sumter. James, welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I agree with you, Phil, 1,000%. I am no way an SEC homer. I'm a Florida State man. But look here, Alabama deserves to be in there simply because nobody wants to watch J.T. Barrett. We don't know what J.T. Barrett is going to show up for Ohio State. Clemson thumped them 31-0 last year, as everybody knows. Alabama, Clemson, come on, let's look. It's the trilogy. Okay, this is Return of the Jedi. Okay, we done seen A New Hope. We done seen Empire Strikes Back. Now we want to see the trilogy. Alabama won on an onside kick. Clemson won on a pick play. So now we got the rubber match of who's going to win this thing. And quite honestly, if I was a Clemson man, I would be a little nervous because Alabama, from according to Paul Feinbaum, they're going to be totally healthy. They missed something like 3 linebackers, 2 offensive linemen. They're going to be totally healthy. And you're going to hear Nick Saban, they're going to be sitting there for a whole month talking about how Clemson beat them last year, how great Clemson is. And the thing I'm scared of, if I'm a Clemson fan, I don't care how good Kelly Bryant is, he is no Deshaun Watson.
Here's the problem. Consider your source with Feinbaum because he's so high on Nick Saban he can see out of his mouth.
Oh, there you go, picking on somebody else in the media again. That's just
and I'm a good friend of
par
both.
For the course.
But I'm just telling you, that's just the way
You're
he
a
feels.
good. Is there anybody in the public sector that you're not good friends with? Just in this first hour, you were trying to date Tony Romo's wife, and now you're good friends with Paul Feinbaum. Is there anybody else you want to name drop here before the top of the hour? I didn't think so. We'll be back. Virginia Tech and Georgia. Yeah. Okay, coming down in 3, 2, 1. A knee injury suffered in the state championship in 3, 2, 1. A knee injury suffered in the state championship game Saturday has slowed down the recruiting process of dormant offensive lineman Jordan McFadden. He's been committed to Virginia Tech, but Clemson has moved out in front. He's expected to flip to the Tigers. The announcement was expected over the weekend, but he had to go to the doctor on Monday and deal with his knee injury, so that has pushed the process back just a little bit. Per Hale McGranahan of SECCountry.com, defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia, will take his official visit to USC this weekend. Defensive end K.J. Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, will take his official to Alabama this weekend. This will be his final official. He's also been to USC, Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Georgia. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina Radio Network Sports.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Very busy Monday edition of Sports Talk. We come to you from Myrtle Beach, side of the Touchstone Energy Bowl North-South game coming up on Saturday. We're going to hear from Nate Thompson, coach of the South team, in just a little bit here on Sports Talk. Plus comments from Will Muschamp and from Dabo Swinney, and some classic Frank Martin comments coming up for you, and recruiting as well. USC tight end Hayden Hurst named to the AP All-SEC First Team. Linebacker Sky Moore, defensive lineman Dante Sawyer named to the Second Team. Announced today.
I would have swapped. I would have swapped Wanham for Sawyer on that one.
I agree. I thought DJ Wanham got kind of hosed on this one.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. It's one thing we can agree on. Another thing we can agree on is how much we love having Zak Willis with us. 1st and 10 here on Sports Talk. One final go-round here this season with the coach as far as the regular season and championship weekend goes. We'll get him back when the bowl season gets here. But, Coach, good to have you with us. What did you think of Clemson in the ACC championship game on Saturday night?
Well, first of all, I want to say I love being with you guys. It's like coming back home. It means the world to me to be here, and I want to thank everybody for being so good to me and all the support I've gotten. As far as Clemson, I don't know if they could have played any better, Phil. The Dabo mentioned, I think in his comments, one way our text one I got, he didn't expect them. He didn't think it'd be that easy, and they made it look easy.
And they did. They got off to the great start, and Kelly Bryant was on fire. And not only the completion of the 15 passes, Coach, but, I mean, you probably looked at it with a more critical eye than I, but I thought he put the ball right where you would draw it up on the board and say, here is where you want to put it. And I thought 15 times in a row he put it right there.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of back shoulder throws. He had one, reminded me of Baker Mayfield and the way he spreads the ball around the spread. Cam Newton is very much power passes, touch passes, and by power passes, I mean you got to put the zip on to get him there. Back shoulder throws, you name it, he did it. And he was extremely poised, and he was leading that football team in a very confident manner, and I was thoroughly, completely impressed with everything he did.
When do you think, from at least from the standpoint of Clemson, do you think that they knew that they kind of had this one in control? Because there were some times even when there was the one play where Ryan Carter forced the fumble where they might have played a little bit of soft coverage, but Carter still forced the fumble. So it seemed like even at times Clemson, when playing conservative on defense, still was able to make plays and keep Miami at bay.
Oh, there's no question. That's an excellent point. I'm going to tell you when I thought really, and this is really early, but Clemson started out by being able to get to the edge of Miami's defense early, and that's no small feat to say, hey, Miami could not gain the edge of the line of scrimmage and get outside on them. And Miami, if they've ever been known for anything, is speed. And Clemson was clearly the faster team from the get-go, obviously much more experienced and aggressive. We know that's going to be there because of the experience they have in these huge games. And even bigger than this, obviously, being defending national champion. But they had a big stop at 6-12 in the first quarter. Miami was trying to answer and match their momentum, and Clemson stuffed them on a real critical third down. And I thought from there it was downhill. And I know that's early, but from a coaching standpoint, looking at it, I was just like, unless the wheels completely come off, and obviously they didn't. If anything, it got bigger and worse as it went on. You're right. I mean, soft coverage, press coverage, blitz, soft zone, you name it, base defense, offensively extremely efficient. You name it, man. They were clicking. The kicking game, a backup kicker hits a 46-yard field goal. I think a career long by a good bit for him. Everything, Dabo's over there laughing on the sideline. I don't know if he was believing it went in, but I mean, they just played great.
Well, Coach, it's when I look at it, George Allen said something very very enlightening, I think, for me. I think when he was a Rams coach, he said the most difficult thing from a mental standpoint is to teach a player that a play in the first quarter may win the game right there. And it seems to me that Dabo and his coaching staff have put in their players' minds when they can really go for the jugular right off the bat and see an opportunity to seize the moment and just take control in the first quarter. And this team, to me, because of their superior lines of scrimmage, have learned that lesson.
No doubt. You know, I think he called it killer instinct. It was either him or Chuck Noll that coined the phrase early on. You know, when I was a young fella growing up, as you were watching those great teams play, you know, they had a killer instinct. They knew when to go for the jugular, and they bought in completely to what Clemson. If you ever hear Dabo talk, he talks about you got to think right before you can play right. It all starts inside your head and your heart. And you know, that's where they're headed. He calls this championship phase. And some coaches talk a lot and really don't say anything. Their teams don't back it up. But from what we've seen of this group for the last 3 years, they back up what their coach preaches. And that is a very key thing. His message is correct, it's solid. They've got great game planning, his game management philosophy is old school but extremely effective. And when he's a superior opponent, he wins. His record proves, 101-29 now, I think, or something. But when he's got an advantage, they press that advantage, and they'll do it early, as you said, Pro. Very insightful as always, but true. I thought 6-12 of the first quarter, the jugular was hit there, and they just turned it on from there and took off.
All right, so the matchup with Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, boy, I tell you what, it doesn't get any more southern than that. Clemson and Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Now, last year, I mean, it went right down to the wire. The year before, it went right down to the wire. Who has the mental edge, the psychological edge for this one? Because, I mean, each has beaten the other the last two times they have played. How much of a mental thing will it be in helping determine the winner here, or is this just going to be determined by obviously the play on the field? But I mean, you see what I'm saying about the fact that Clemson beat Alabama last time? Is that going to give Alabama more of an mental edge? Does that come into play very much?
Well, I think that I thought it was going to until the Vegas line opened at giving Alabama a 2.5 point edge. And when that happened, I was like, okay, Dabo can seize on that. Saban's going to have the revenge mode thing going. They'll both swear they're not, but they will. Because that's a strong motivator in sports, especially among elite athletes and programs with a tremendous amount of pride. These are the two perennial programs right now in the country. Doesn't mean they may do what Alabama and Auburn did to each other, beat each other to a pulp, and beat up in the national championship game. But I would say they both have things psychologically that they can draw from. If Clemson would have opened as a favorite in Vegas, I would have given the edge to Alabama psychologically, but because Clemson seeded number 1, playing number 4, and yet people have already the money is against them, I look for Coach Swinney and his staff to use that as motivation in some way, shape, or form.
And really, you know, nobody's surprised anymore when you see Clemson number 1. I mean, I know they're the defending national champion, but when it first happened, it was like, wow, look, there's Clemson seeded number 1. I mean, now it's like you kind of accept Clemson like you accept an Alabama, or like you used to accept Notre Dame as being in that spot.
I think they put themselves there about, 7 or 8 years they've won 10 games or more. And now 3 straight ACC championships and a national championship will do that. I think Alabama, in a lot of people's minds, maybe other than Clemson. Clemson just kind of like, hey, we're playing Alabama, let's go. You saw their reaction. There was none. They're ready to play whoever they got to play. And speaking of individual players, I don't want to go without mentioning 42 Wilkins on defense, who he is a big game player, man. What a heck. He got one all the way to Massachusetts to get that kid. As far as Clemson being a dynasty, definitely up to Coach Ford's era now for sure. And they can surpass it if they go through this and they're successful and win 2 more ball games. Man, there are not enough superlatives.
Hold on, Zach. We'll be right
guy.
back to you. Zak Willis, 1st and 10. Be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Wrap things up with Zak Willis, 1st and 10, plus a little bonus here in just a moment. Remind you that the North-South game, the Touchstone Energy Bowl, coming up Saturday here in Myrtle Beach. Tickets for the game are just $20. You can buy them online at touchstoneenergybowl.com. You can also purchase them at the gate. Come on down to the beach, enjoy yourself, and watch some of the best high school seniors in South Carolina go head-to-head at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium. Okay, Zach, I want you to be able to finish up your comments about Clemson that you were making there as we hit the break.
Well, I just think basically recognizing two kids, obviously Kelly Bryant, phenomenal, but Wilkins on the defensive line has had an incredible year. And then Renfro, every big game, he just kind of shows up when you need him the most. And Kelly Bryant's starting to learn to rely on him in the red zone, like Watson did. And I think that's going to be a big key. They got it's going to be a heck of a game in Alabama. And I've got a whole month to study up on this, and I'm excited about it.
Well, we'll get you back with us when bowl season gets here. We roll around to the Clemson game, the USC game, both playing on the same day, both playing on New Year's Day. Should be a heck of a lot of fun for us. And we thank you for being with us throughout the entire football season. Your insight has been priceless, and we really appreciate it and look forward to talking to you and seeing you maybe down here at the beach this weekend if you're coming down.
Ooh, we'll see, Phil. I'm hoping cross your fingers and say you prayers I can get down there. I love that game. If you have a chance to go see some good football, eat some seafood, that is a great all-star game to everybody out there. And Phil, again, everybody, it's been a blast. Y'all are first class. Thank you so much.
Love you, Zach.
Appreciate it.
Love you too, guys. Take care.
Love?
Yes. I love his analysis. It was my idea. It was my idea to expand him to 20 minutes. I love that guy's analysis. It's great. And, yeah, I'll take credit. I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, I know you don't. Let's go to Dabo Swinney and the Tigers. They got the word yesterday that they'll be #1 in the CFP, and for that they get to go to New Orleans, Will, and take on Alabama. You'll be joining your Tigers in New Orleans.
Not my Tigers. I like both of the programs that represent the Power 5 conferences in the state of South Carolina equally and unequivocally. So that's where I sit as far as that goes. And just to the point of that he made about Christian Wilkins, that was his NFL draft reel on Saturday. I don't think he has any reason to come back and play after this year, after what he did on Saturday. But as far as the Tigers at large concerned, a familiar opponent for a third consecutive year, Dabo Swinney, says that this is obviously something that could be as close as it has been the last 2 years.
Proud of our team, our staff, unbelievable accomplishment, and culminating with a great victory last night, winning our conference, probably playing our best 4 quarters. But this is a great privilege to be a part of the playoff, and just so excited to come back. I want to say congratulations to Alabama and Coach Saban and their staff and team. Just what a great year they had as well. And, I have no doubt this will be a heck of a matchup. Obviously played each other the last 2 years, and it's come down to a few plays, and I don't doubt this one will be the same. But it's exciting to be a part of it. And like I said, just really looking forward to coming to the Sugar Bowl. 59 years since Clemson's been there.
I know this is the third time you play them. Is it hard to play somebody a third time than after you guys played them, last 2 seasons in the national title game?
No, I don't think so. We play people in our conference every year. So, it's just kind of, it's just a little bit of familiarity because you've played them the previous couple of years. But, it's what's hard is when you play a great team. That's what's hard. Anytime you play a great team, it's really, really hard. But, in our conference, there's certain teams we play every single year that you just know that it's going to be a heck of a battle. And even though Alabama's not in our conference, anytime you line up to play those guys, it's going to be a everything you got type of game. But we look forward to it.
Nationally, you guys have been measured making this climb by games against Alabama. It's like, okay, well, when you played Alabama so close, 2015, got more respect. Beating them took that to another level. What's it like that having those games with Bama that sort of earned you guys a national respect by playing well and then beating, and then having to play them again?
We've become a very consistent program. We've won 82 games in 7 years, and I think Alabama's the only team that's won a few more. So I think we've just become a very consistent program. And we've beaten a lot of good teams, the Ohio States, Oklahomas, LSU, Georgia, and so on. A lot of good programs. Sometimes people they don't want to really give you much credit until you beat the very best. And so, Alabama has certainly represented that. And, I think when we won it all, because that was really the only thing we hadn't done was win a national championship. So I think winning the national championship and definitely, coming out on having to beat the best team to do it, I think, maybe put a little brighter light on our program. But it's really more to me about the consistency overall than it is any one game.
But you guys lost one of the best players in program history off of last season's team in Deshaun Watson. How do you feel like you adapted the offense to account for his absence, and what was the biggest key to that process?
Well, I wouldn't say, adapted the offense because he was gone. He's gone. I just think that, every year you just start over and you assess your team. And, we felt like this year, more so than last year, we were going to be a better running team because of the versatility and experience of our running backs. And so, we've just got a lot more balance there. And I felt like we'd be a fresher team in the backfield. And then Kelly is a little faster than Deshaun. So, and then we had our biggest things. We had all those linemen back. We had every lineman back except one. So I felt like we'd be able to win in the trenches and run the ball a little more effectively than we did last year. And that's something that's exactly what we've been able to do. But and then just some new guys that you kind of have to go with their pace. So we've just developed and matured all throughout the year and kind of hitting our stride right when we need to be.
All right, Dabo Swinney from his teleconference call yesterday talking about the Tigers' matchup with Alabama. I think it's just going to be tremendously exciting, and not only for the fans here in the Southeast, but, this is certainly capturing the imagination of the nation, the fact that you've got the last two national champions who have gone head-to-head the last 2 years now in a rubber match in the national semifinals. It really couldn't have worked out even any better. And then, if it's Clemson, Georgia in the national championship game in Atlanta, my goodness, that'll blow the top off that place.
That could break the record for the most expensive national championship game in the history of college football if they end up Clemson and Georgia, both just a couple of hours from Atlanta, basically a piece.
And of course, Clemson would play in the two stadiums that's named for Mercedes
right in a row.
Benz in New Orleans and Atlanta.
Yeah.
Benzies.
All right. To recruiting, we go here before we hit the break. Dorman offensive lineman Jordan McFadden, just talked to him a little while ago. He went to the doctor today to have his knee checked out. He hurt his knee in the championship game Saturday. It's still swollen. They're going to do an MRI. All of this has put his recruiting on hold. As you know, he's been a Virginia Tech commit, but he's been indicating strongly that he will flip to Clemson. He says it's going to get done, but right now he's got to deal with the knee issue. He's got to find out. He thinks he might have a torn MCL. The MRI will tell him. And right now it's scheduled for Thursday, but he's hoping to get that done earlier if he can. If the knee is injured, of course, he'll miss the Shrine Bowl as well. He did have a good talk with Clemson offensive line coach Robbie Caldwell on Saturday, and he says Caldwell is coming to see him on Tuesday. From Hale McGranahan at SEC Country, defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia, will take his official visit to USC this coming weekend. Defensive end K.J. Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, will take his official visit to Alabama this coming weekend. He has also been to USC. He's been to Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Georgia. Virginia Tech was to be in today. Clemson is due in Wednesday and USC Thursday. USC defensive line coach Lance Thompson visited defensive end Dorian Gerald out in California on Sunday. 2019 athlete Litchfield Ajavon of Alexandria, Virginia, has a final 7 of Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, Georgia, Virginia Tech, and Wisconsin. When we come back, we'll hear from Will Muschamp here on Sports Talk.
His representatives have talked to basically Venables is at the Broyles Award stuff in Arkansas. And basically what he said was people have talked to his representatives, but he's talked to no one.
Okie
He
smoke.
says, I've not spoken to anybody, but my representatives have, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, see, that's being honest, straightforward, and everybody's happy with that.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know if you have any window, but I don't know if you could just do a quick spiel on what happened at Raleigh Saturday with the SC State
South Carolina State kid.
being resuscitated.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Scary.
To watch.
I thought of Joe Red immediately.
Yeah. Mayfield, Jackson, Love, the Heisman finalists.
Yep, saw it.
Are you a Heisman voter?
Yeah, you asked me this already. No.
I did ask that. When did I ask you that?
During
What
the
date? You remember the date?
During the
time?
during the Carolina game, I believe it was the first quarter. Carolina
was that
Clemson
at
game.
about
Carolina Clemson game.
7:47.
How
many? How many trips through the food line had you had already?
They only allow one. I had already gone for my popcorn and my fourth or fifth Diet Coke.
There you go.
Or Coke Zero. I'm sorry. I do Coke Zero there. Don't make fun of my photographic memory.
No, I'm amazed by it. I think it's a unbelievable talent to have.
No, it's a curse too.
Hey, but I'll tell you what. Corn hit the I hit something in my parlay on Saturday. All of a sudden, I checked my account, and that sucker jumped up $200.
You got to know when to hold.
Thinking I hit a parlay.
They're trying to fatten you.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Will Muschamp got the Gamecocks into a bowl game for the second consecutive year. A pretty good step up for the Gamecocks, going from Birmingham of last year to Tampa this year, and a January 1st date against Michigan. High-profile setting for the Gamecocks, a chance to get to 9 wins. A lot of positives for South Carolina with this bowl selection. And obviously Muschamp, everybody at USC happy about what they've accomplished. Here's what Muschamp had to say about it at his briefing last night.
Well, obviously we're excited about going to Tampa in the Outback Bowl. It's a great reward for our players, our university, our staff, administration, and our fan base. And I know our fan base will travel extremely well. We're a very appealing team to a lot of people because of our fan base and because of how we travel, and selling the tickets is obviously a huge part of it. And I know our people will travel extremely well, but a great reward for our players and a lot of hard work, and going down to Tampa for a week will be a great reward for them. An opportunity to continue to show progress within our program. And we've shown tremendous progress. We're an up and coming team. 70% of our roster is freshmen and sophomores. So it's an exciting time as a Gamecock. Opportunity for, in essence, another spring practice to continue to develop that part of your football team and continuing to work through those sort of things, which is really exciting to be able to work with our guys, in essence, having another spring. But injuries-wise, A.J. Turner, Casey Crosby, and Rico Dowdle should all be back for the bowl game and should be ready to go. Terry Gouger has not been cleared, and obviously Debo will be out. But other than that, I think that roster-wise, our guys still have 2 weeks of school before exams.
Any guys right now who have been kind of pushing towards the end of the season, notably a Keshawn Nixon, who are kind of pushing for potentially a start in the bowl?
Well, Keyshawn did a fantastic job when he got in our last ball game, and certainly we need to be more physical on the perimeter. That's been an issue since we've been here, and he certainly is going to get a lot more opportunities. There's no doubt about that. But just right now, I do feel like we've got a good mix up front defensively on how we're rotating and playing the guys. Continuing to build our depth on the offensive line. Obviously, Rico coming back, that creates more competition, which is good for us. I think, we've had a lot of young guys playing and doing a nice job, but for Drake Davis to be able to have a spring ball, to Ortre to continue to progress the way he has throughout the year and have another spring ball, in essence, this being bowl practice. But for all those young players, I think it'll be huge for them. We need some tight ends to step up, and then, linebacker Sherrod Green would be huge for him to go through the spring practice. Damani Staley is a guy that we're excited about his future here. So all of those guys, again, they get an opportunity to take a step forward with the reps and the amount of turns that they're going to get.
Were there any guys in last year's bowl practices that really you kind of use that as a launching off point to doing what they did this season?
Well, I mean, I think that, Jamarcus King and Rashad Fenton both, continue to come on. DJ Smith, I thought the latter part of the season last year did some really nice things. TJ Bronson's the guy that really took off from his bowl practice last year, just kind of off the top of my head here. Kobe Smith did some nice things. I think up front, Zach Bailey and some guys really did some things positively stepping forward. It was big for Jake. I mean, last year you took the steps from the season to how well he played in the bowl game. Tremendous strides. So that's a positive there. So, Brian Edwards, again, all the young players, they just need turns and reps. They need as many at-bats as they can get to continue to improve and slow the process down for them.
There you go. Will Muschamp, happy guy. Pretty happy with what they've accomplished. Feels like they're moving in the right direction. Let's go to the other big Gamecock head coach, Frank Martin. He got a win on Saturday as well. I mean, Muschamp got a win Sunday with the bowl bid. Frank Martin got a win on Saturday as well, but it wasn't necessarily the type of performance he was looking for. Added on top of that, the performance the other night in that loss to Temple, it kind of put Coach Frank Martin in a sour mood. Here is a montage of a few of his comments about himself, his coaching staff, the fans, and his team.
Job me and my staff are doing right now is pathetic, and we regressed this week. We're a worse basketball team today than we were 8 days ago, and that's my job to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm tired of Chris being in foul trouble. The song and dance is old. It's 3 years old. None of his fouls are blocking shots. They're all just petty, silly fouls, and I'm just tired of it. And then our guards are pathetic guarding the basketball. We're a soft basketball team right now. And for 35 years, my teams have never been soft, and it's my job. I told you I haven't coached good. I've got to help my staff do better. I've got to help our players do better. But we're soft now, and that don't fit with me. There must have been some kind of a golf tournament or an evaluation of seventh round offensive lineman or something in town, because obviously our fans decided that showing up here today wasn't that important. But I can't worry about fans. I've got to get my team right. We're soft. We had a bad week. We have not played worth a crap this week, and that's my job, to get us to play the game the right way. Yeah, it's sad when our best player is a kid that's been on campus for 4 months. Sad. But it is what it is, and he wasn't very good today, but that's our best player. If you go from a consistency, understanding, competitive, his mindset, he checks every box. He didn't play well today, but it's I'm proud of Justin. If there's one glimmer of hope for me is that I think he's going to become a real good player. And Sonny's a very talented young man. The next time he guards the ball will be the first. And that's what kept him out of the lineup last year. That's why you couldn't play him extended minutes last year. I thought he had gotten better. Obviously, this week he hasn't been very good at it. You can play zone, man, box on one, pack line, deny, trap, full court press. The guy guarding the ball can't guard the basketball. You're a bad defensive team. And right now, we can't guard the ball. I mean, couldn't guard it against FIU, couldn't guard it against Temple, didn't guard it today. I told you guys, I liked these guys back in November. I told you, if you asked me in December, my opinion might be different. Guess what? It is different right now.
The only thing I had a problem with was calling out the fans. That's my only issue. I mean, when you lose to Illinois State and you schedule UMass, I mean, come on, Frank. Let's be real.
Well, UMass is not a bad basketball program. Come on, it's got a lot of history. It's an NCAA tournament team of the past.
Have they had a player since Marcus? Have they had a player since Marcus can't be there? Honestly, I'm asking.
Julius Irving
honestly.
was big enough to cover the entire lifetime of the program. But here's my point. I love the honesty. I love cut me open and just let it spill out. You don't get that every day in the sports world, whether it's college or professional. And you know, he looked at himself, he looked at his staff, he looked at his team. He said, "We all stink. We all stink right now."
I love Frank Martin. He's
that's
great.
Just refreshing to hear from a guy.
His greatest hits.
Oh, you love Frank Martin? Who else do you love? I haven't heard any love sent my way. I haven't said you haven't said, "Corn, I love you tonight."
It might be unrequited.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Wait a minute. You said you wanted to hear the truth. But I
think Pro has rendered me speechless.
But I would say that Frank has to realize that you've got the championship games all on TV Saturday. You had the high school championship games on Saturday. You have shopping day. 2:00 in the afternoon on that particular Saturday was a difficult draw, and they were lucky to get 10,000 plus in there.
Yeah, there weren't 10,000 there. I watched. I was watching the game in the press box at Charlotte.
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually there. I was actually in the arena.
It looked like there were 10,000 there. Is what I'm trying to say.
You don't think you should refer to me as somebody who was actually there to give the accurate accounting?
Well,
of the
I
attendance?
remember you had said that on the Twitter, so I was just referring to you as well.
So in other words,
I love you, Willie P. I am so in love with Willie P.
And full disclosure,
this is just a love fest.
Full disclosure says you were caught, Abe, yesterday, and there was more fans in there for the women's game on Sunday than it was for the men's game.
I went to the women's game as a fan. I mean, just bought tickets and walked in with the wife and had a very enjoyable time.
I love you as long as Kurt Roper is the offensive coordinator and is calling plays in the bowl game.
Let's hope that he is. I think he can make it happen.
The emotional.
Momentum play early on, a fork in the road play, 4th and goal from just inside the 2. Left hash, Drew Brees ducks into the huddle with the black uniform clad Saints, and now out they come. Ends in tight, and Drew Brees with the pitch to Kamara, trucking right. Kamara hit at the goal line, second effort. He gets in for the touchdown.
No, and Luke Kuechly is way upset.
All right, time for our visits on this Monday Night Football Talk with the voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon. The Panthers went down to New Orleans and could not take care of business against the Saints. I guess, Mick, that second quarter, falling behind a couple of touchdowns, built a deficit that was just too much to overcome yesterday.
The play that you played right there, Corn, that was so, I don't know if you planned it this way or not. Probably you did, because that's how you roll. But I mean, that was the game in a crucible. That was Shaq Thompson in perfect position to stone Kamara at goal line. But instead of shooting his arms and wrapping up, Shaq Thompson, normally a very good tackler, he just plays bumper cars with him and just tries to just bump him down. And Kamara's got too low a center of gravity. He's got too good a balance for that. And missed tackles. I think if you boil this game down into a crucible, the Panther coaches and certainly on the defensive side of the building would say just bad gap control, poor run fits, and missed tackles is what did it.
Let's give credit where credit is due, or he'll get upset. And that was Willie P. who actually did that piece.
I'm surprised that came from Corn. That's nice. We like that.
I like to give the credit where it's due. By the way, Mick, I saw you on the TV show the other night, looking mighty fine. I mean, you're like you're just like clean shaven from head to toe. I like the look.
Something must be wrong with your vertical hold on there. No, I know I'm pretty dinged up, but I'm not trying to impress anybody. I've already got a wife and I got a job, so I just kind of do with what hand nature dealt to me, which is not a lot.
Well, Mick, back to football. We're looking at the Saints, and you almost told yourself 9 out of 10 times this Saint team the last few years, it would have been the Panthers playing a pass, even on that last play we heard. Just looking at the Saints this year with a running game, how much more dangerous, in your opinion, looking at that offense yesterday, that they are, even having Drew Brees there?
It's unfair. I mean, it should be illegal. With Drew Brees' ability to play that speed chess, his pocket presence, excuse me, is incredible. And he may have lost 10 yards on the deep ball. He doesn't throw it 65 yards anymore, but he doesn't need to. The timing, the route combinations, the way he slots to throwing lanes, he moves forward. He's one of the better pocket climbers that's ever played. And now you add the run game. I mean, if they still had Jimmy Graham playing time, if they had a marquee tight end, I know Kobe Fleener's good, but he's dinged up, he's hurt. They'd average 40 points a game.
Well, they beat you twice this year in the regular season. The Saints did, so you got a pretty good idea of. Yet, you're still, right there in the hunt for the division at this point in time, and a playoff spot, of course. In 3 straight home games now, you come home to the Vikings, the Packers, and the Buccaneers. So, I mean, you got a chance to make something happen here in the next 3 weeks and put yourself right in the midst of things as you go to Atlanta to close out the regular season on New Year's Eve.
Perfectly said, Phil. It's right there. I mean, you've done a lot of good work. You've gone on the road, won some tough road games, taken a few lumps along the way, but 8-4 with now 3 of your last 4 at home. So what's it going to be? Will this season be remembered for some kind of epic collapse where the Panthers couldn't hold serve at home, or does Carolina get dieseled up, protect their home ball yard, and somehow or another shoehorn their way into the playoffs?
About to say the only game that if you were a Panther fan you could be ashamed of, Mick, was the Bear game. I mean, otherwise you're losing games to basically the other 3 games are all playoff teams. And to me, the only thing that I would say is of concern, and you can even add another if you think there is one, but just sometimes this defense does not play up to the kind of snuff that we're used to seeing them play in.
Well, that was an elite offense yesterday, but I agree with you. It's the hardest thing in the NFL to be consistently good, and the Panthers aspire to that. The tough part about yesterday for a lot of Panther fans, guys, was that Cam Newton played a winning performance. Normally, if it's herky-jerky, it's because Cam is up and down. Played well enough to win. There were just mistakes. The gaps were not controlled. The breaches occurred in other areas.
So you spent the weekend in New Orleans, and Willie P will be going down for the Sugar Bowl. Did you leave any water in the watering holes there for Willie P when he gets down there?
Well, they should just pressure wash that whole city. I mean, it's
You know what I love doing whenever I'm in New Orleans? I love getting up like the morning after a big weekend night and just watching them hose all of Bourbon Street down. It's like so peaceful to just watch the hosing down of all of the remnants of the night before. The remnants of the night before, basically.
Yeah, including some people that are probably still there. I mean, it's a different look down there. I mean, it is. It's definitely. If the Superdome was for sale, the real estate ad would have to say "fixer upper."
Oof!
Wow.
Oof. Hey, Mick, any injuries coming out of yesterday's game?
Let me think. No, everything's pretty straight up. Shaq Thompson was hurt, came back, tried to play. I talked to him on the plane. He said he's going to be all right. The big concern is for Greg Olsen and for Ryan Khalil. When do we get those guys back?
Yeah. And what you got on your show tonight?
Good show. Wes Horton, the 96 defensive end, part of one of the deeper defensive line rotations in the NFL, and then we'll catch up with Coach Rivera as well tonight. One of these shows that we're going to get Demir Bird on, your boy.
That'd be great. Yeah, Gamecock fans would love to hear from him, I'm sure. I saw where he recovered a fumble yesterday as part of a drive. Mick, we thank you, man. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, my man, the voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon. I want to get to this information we haven't touched on publicly. Being reported, Venables is up in New York for the Broyles Award, and he said that his reps have talked to Arkansas, but he's still focused on Clemson. Also, this report from Nicole Auerbach, she ESPN, or what is she?
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah. Says she's got Jeff Scott interviewing for the South Alabama job this week, along with several others. And Tony Elliott's name has been linked to the Central Florida job, right?
The Athletic with Nicole Auerbach. She's with the Athletic.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Clarify.
And Tony Elliott linked to the Central Florida job. Am I correct with that?
You are correct with that as well. Again, the way to do this is until you see something in paper, just assume the people are there, and as long as they're there. As long as they show up to meetings, as long as they show up to recruiting situations, as long as they show up to game plan meetings, they're a member of your team. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, but if somebody asks you, like if somebody asks Dabo, hey, is Tony Elliott going to be calling plays in the Sugar Bowl? And he goes, yeah, sure is. Though he knows that Jeff Scott's Tony Elliott's going to be, out recruiting for Central Florida. You know what I'm saying? Just tell the truth. So, I'm not saying, and again, I don't want to be painted into this corner. I'm not calling him out. I'm hoping.
You holding the brush.
I'm taking his word for it.
That's all you can
Kurt
do.
Roper, in his opinion, Kurt Roper will be calling the plays for the Gamecocks. I'm taking his word for it over the word of an insider
and for
who
Clemson,
seems to believe he knows what's going on.
And for Clemson fans, you have a healthy, winning staff, and it's always good, even if the guys aren't ready to move, to go on these interviews, to have experience interviewing for head jobs, maybe down the line if they see one they're interested in.
I asked Dabo about whether or not he's concerned with professional success elsewhere or personal success at Clemson. He says 0. He isn't concerned. So if he's not concerned, you shouldn't be either.
I'm concerned about everything, but I want both of you to know that tonight I love you. I love both of you guys.
Well, I knew that before you said it.
I Anything on the agenda?
Any press conferences or anything like that going on down that way?
Don't believe so. Oh,